Hi, thank you for joining. My name is Emily Parrott and I work for Africa Tech Festival. Today we are joined by Clint Brown, who is the Vice President for Sales and Marketing Development for SES Video in Africa. Thanks for joining today, Clint. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you, Emily.
Great, thank you for joining. So first to start, could you just tell me a little bit about SES?
SES is one of the world's leading content and connectivity solutions providers. We're a satellite operator and we operate about 70 satellites over two different orbits, 50 on geostationary and 20 on medium Earth orbits. We broadcast high quality pictures, so standard definition, high definition and ultra definition contents through our satellites, and we deliver that content to millions of homes worldwide.
Great. And so what does SES do in Africa specifically?
In Africa specifically, what we do, we have a number of platforms which we operate, a couple in West Africa, one in East Africa. And what we do with those platforms is we take single channels and multiple channels and broadcast those to the local community. So they are locally produced channels, they are internationally produced channels, they are channels that are produced specifically for a certain national language, and there are channels that are multilingual as well. So it's all about taking high quality content and distributing it to as many households and or devices.
So what do you think is driving the increase in satellite TV reception across Africa, just Africa more generally, and then we'll look a little bit more closely at West Africa?
I think the main thing is Africa will always be a continent which is relevant, or where satellites, I should say, is relevant to the distribution of data, the distribution of content, the building of networks. Because of the topology of Africa, it's always going to require satellite to be part of the connectivity picture. And what is driving the growth in satellite is the increasing high quality content, the increase in the way business is being done, whether it by the internet or whether it be by other connected sources. So that in itself are the driving elements about what's going on in Africa, and more households wanting to have high quality content delivered to that household on multiple screens in that household. That is the sort of the driving factor.
I guess just on top of that is the kind of the lack of reliable terrestrial alternatives in many countries also a driver.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily the driver, but I think the fact that they're having to make the change and moving from old school terrestrial radio based networks to satellite networks, which give you complete coverage. And that's the sort of the one thing about satellite which is uniquely different than to any other type of distribution platform, is that satellite, the footprint of that transponder will serve every single individual household in that footprint. So it's not like a DTT tower where it can serve the local community and not beyond. So you have to have multiple towers to serve the community. One satellite or one transponder on a satellite can serve significant communities, rural, urban, peri-urban. It can do the lot, and that's a big factor in it as well.
Do you see the kind of growth continuing in Africa? I guess maybe short term, but to kind of long term, how do you see the growth there and why?
Absolutely, I think the growth will continue, and I think it's going to be driven by the increased economic performance of the continent. I mean, even in these times, growth is still part of the equation. The economic growth is still part of the equation of most of the developing countries within the African continent. I think where satellites is uniquely placed to do that is it offers more bang for the buck. And so that is why, as I said, satellite will continue and will always be relevant as far as that is concerned. So yes, growth will continue, and economic growth will drive greater demand, and greater demand will drive greater access to more diverse and varied content. So yeah, absolutely.
And on the topic of greater demand then, just thinking about kind of HD TV, do you think that HD TV is boosting satellite TV take up in Africa, or is it the other way around?
I think technology is enabling it, and satellite helps to facilitate that technology. Whether HD is a driving factor, I think has yet to be proven. But I think what we will see is that there will be more demand for it. As people move from terrestrial distribution to digital distribution, they're already seeing an uptick in quality. And as they go to high definition, they'll see more quality, and that's what they'll want. And I think it's fair to say that if you're spending a lot of money on a flat screen for your home, you're going to want to get the best quality content you can for that flat screen, or what's the point? So absolutely, we see it's a bit like, it's a bit chicken and egg, but it isn't, in terms of the content. The high definition content is increasingly being there, and people are buying the platforms to see that high definition content. So they're sort of egging each other on, if I can put it that way. Pardon the pun there, actually.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. That is interesting. So I guess then thinking about kind of the deadline for analog switching off, that's looming in much of Africa, of course. So how well positioned do you think satellite TV generally, and I guess and SES in particular, is to take advantage of this?
I think without any question, if you're a country that's going to accelerate your DSO and meet the challenge today, or the 2021 challenge, the fastest and most effective way of doing that is by using satellite. Because with one agreement, you can then deliver that content to the whole of the country. Now, the question lies in that, is this just, is satellite the only part of the equation? No, it's not. There are other components of the equation. There are other intricacies to it, or nuances to it, that allow it to work effectively. One of the components is definitely going to be, when it gets to the household, how does it get to the household? Is it a set-top box? Is it is it that your TV has the capability of receiving the signal direct from your satellite dish, so there's no requirement for a set-top box? So technology is going to be part of the equation as well. And getting early into that and making a decision around that in terms of your strategy is also going to be important. And again, it's going to be, is it going to be DTT? Or is it going to be DTH, or is it going to be a hybrid of environments? Satellite plays a part in all of those, because satellite can feed the DTT towers, satellite can deliver direct to home, satellite is part of the equation. As I said, it is the premier part of the equation.
Great, that's really interesting. So you'll be obviously doing a panel at the Africa Tech Festival, and you were talking about kind of it's called SES Industry Days for Africa. So on the topic of content and consumption, and where are African viewers to be found, you'll be talking about that. Do you want to share any information, kind of what you'll be talking about, maybe some high level points, so that anybody watching can kind of get an insight into the panel in a little bit more detail ahead of the event?
Yeah, it's an interesting panel, actually, because it's made up of a variety of people from within the industry. It's made up of content providers. It's made up of distributors like ourselves. It's made up of people who have an interest in what's going on in the markets. And I suppose the overwhelming theme for me that comes out, and it goes back to the points I've just made, is it really is about creating a new ecosystem. That's what's going to facilitate the transition. It's about creating new ecosystems, new business models of how you take content from the content provider and broadcast that to as many devices as possible. And I'm being very clear when I say devices here, because I'm also talking about not just the home, but how you can deliver that to how you can deliver that to a tablet, or how you can deliver that to a laptop or a PC. That's what's going to be the transformational factor, creating these new ecosystems that allow that to happen. So you're not just talking about satellite operators, you're not just talking about content providers, you're not just talking about set-top box manufacturers and set-top box distributors, you're also talking about mobile operators, you're also talking about infrastructure providers who'll be working together to distribute that content in as wide a base as possible. And those are the things we're going to be talking a lot about during that session.